and welcome back to our show, Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle. Our first guest today is Helen Mack, and this is part of the series Optimising Outcomes, and today she's talking about taking action. So welcome, Helen.
Thanks, Linda.
Can you just start us off by how people would start taking action?
Sure. So we've talked about creating clarity, we've talked about maximising momentum, and we've talked about maintaining mindset. And all of that is fantastic, but if you're only thinking about it, then nothing's going to change. So without action, all we have is contemplation. And thinking never made anything occur. I think some people get into what I call analysis paralysis. They spend so much time thinking about which should I do and what's the best thing to do that they don't realise that by simply choosing to act, they bring in some power from the universe that somehow supports and helps you then take the next step.
So important, isn't it, for us to think about that overthinking takes over so easily in life.
And it's exhausting because you spend your whole time trying to sort out the priorities and which is the best thing and can I and just asking all these questions that end up with you going into a spiral and nothing happens. And then you start beating yourself up about all the things you should do. I call it shoulding all over yourself. I should do this and I should do that. None of that matters. All you need to do is just take a small positive step forward. And the wonderful thing that happens then is that you get feedback. So you take a tiny step and the universe gives you feedback. That was a great decision, Helen, keep going. Or, oh, I don't think so. And you'll get obstacles and things that make it really, really difficult. And the key piece is to watch for those, to notice those messages and go, this is seeming like it's really, really hard. Maybe I should just pause and take a slightly different direction. So I like to use, this is going to give away my age, but I like to use the example of push starting a car. Now, there are going to be some of our viewers who go, what are you talking about? Because you can't push start automatics. But in the days of manual cars, you had to get the car into momentum before you could change direction. You had to take action. You had to put some input in to get an outcome. And it's the same with whatever goals you're at. Your viewers may have noticed, if they've been watching, that I'm a bit of a fan of orange. And the other analogy that I love to use is that you can't get orange juice from an orange by looking at it. You actually have to do something. You have to squeeze. And I think life's a bit like that. You don't get the juice out of life if you don't give it a good squeeze.
On that path where people can get caught up in this positive thinking thing, you were talking about that earlier. What's your take on affirmations and that sort of perspective?
I think that one of the challenges that I have with affirmations is that when a lot of people teach affirmations, they teach you to talk in the current tense about things that are going to happen in the future tense. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that because my brain goes, no, I'm not. I say, I'm tall and fit and healthy, and my little voice says, no, I'm not. So I like if I'm going to make statements about my future, I use action words, verbs, like I'm working towards, or I'm taking steps towards, or I'm becoming, rather than I am. Because my brain fights with me. If I say I am something that I'm working towards, I literally have the little voice going, no, you're not. And so I think that's a problem. Now, I'm an optimist by personality and by trade. That's what I teach the world, is how to be more optimistic. The problem is that thinking doesn't make anything happen. So, bad news for all of us. We cannot sit on the couch and think positively about the red Ferrari coming down the driveway. It's not going to happen. The piece that's missing is what I call the action imperative. The only way to get that red Ferrari, if that's what you want, is to go out and do something to make that happen. And that's why I love optimism as an approach, because optimism has a built-in action imperative. The word itself, optimism, comes from optimus, which is Latin, the search for the good, the search for the best possible. And again, your viewers may remember that from our first episode. So the search for the best possible outcome is built into optimism. It doesn't mean that we are always sweetness and light and balloons and streamers. It means that we take a realistic look at what's going on. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? What's the best possible route for me to get there? And then what's the action I can take to move me towards that goal?
I love that becoming. Because that's totally relevant for me in my journey. I could always have those arguments with myself, and then the overthinking's more compounded, isn't it?
Correct.
You're not feeling like that. So
No.
how can I be that if I'm not feeling?
Yeah,
like
I can't say I am when I'm not yet. So I'm becoming is a very powerful change of verb.
So in regard to bigger things and with that possibility thinking, what sort of action can we take towards that to get the best possible scenario?
So I'm going to start with one that your viewers have probably heard before, because I think a lot of people have heard, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Now, I quite like that analogy, except that I also like elephants. So I don't like the idea of eating elephants. I think the key is to take the tiniest possible step to activate what we talked about a couple of sessions ago around maximising momentum. Once we get into action, once we get into movement, like pushing that stalled car, once we get it moving, then we've got the chance to change direction. It's very hard to change direction from being stopped, from being stationary. In any big project, the key is just to take that first tiny step. Once you get that tiny step, you'll get feedback, you'll have a chance to take more steps and more steps. One of my favourite sayings in this area was delivered to me by a very good friend, Max Dixon, and he said, just choose a single, simple, doable thing. Then you know you've done it, and then you can choose another one. Baby steps will still get you there.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much, Helen, for joining us in this series. For more information on Helen and optimising outcome and today's taking actions on that, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And now we'll go to break and be back with another beautiful guest. Welcome back, and now we have Con Nichols, property advisor and wellbeing advocate, and today's the third in our series about improving your environment to meet your lifestyle. Welcome back, Con.
Thank you for having me back. It's been a pleasure always to come show.
Today you're going to talk about more of the financial side of things, I believe.
Definitely, Linda. Look, the financial benefits is one of the biggest advantages in this particular category. And just imagine, mum and dad, they've got a massive house, all the kids have moved out, and the grandparents also moved on as well. And there you go, mum and dad, they've got a massive 5-bedroom property that literally, they hardly even go to any of the rooms apart from themselves. So by bringing the property down into a different level and finding a smaller property, that gives them the flexibility and the ability that they can gain financial benefit by having more equity in the house. Now, the same token also, if they don't earn any money on it, obviously there's a lot more pots to play around with. And of course, it's always in people's mind, now that we've got this extra cash, we can actually help the kids to buy themselves a house, or maybe one of the kids is getting married, so we'll help with a wedding, or you know what, that particular the holiday we always wanted to go with the hubby, we never get the chance to do it. But you know what? Now that we've got the extra cash, let's enjoy life to the fullest. And we found out that a lot of people are taking this massive advantage to do the things that they could not afford previously with the things they can do right now.
So you'd say that with the lifestyle, that means they can travel more, they can, or whatever they...
Definitely. There's a lot of examples out there in the last few months that actually I've dealt with people out there that I actually downsized to a smaller home, and for example, going to a townhouse, a 2-bedroom townhouse, or a 3-bedroom townhouse, a study sort of thing, that gives them still not as much space as before. That it was pointless, but it gives them more controlled environment on the living aspect. However, it gives them the extra money to get the holidays, to go and buy a new car. Maybe even buy another investment property. Or, at the end of the day, depends on everybody's circumstances. There could be opportunity for them to reinvest in the share market, or it can be any possible investment proposal that they can be offered for them by their own financial advisor.
Oh, so you'd have people asking about that, and as you say, people could go to their own financial advisor to get the details of that. So, what other benefits financially would there be from the going into a smaller? Is there a change in the? Can they go to an area where maybe they're spending less on transport to places, or does it kick into it? Have you found?
Definitely. Look, Melbourne is growing, as we all know. I mean, for example, if you had a big house in Malvern, argument's sake, and you got your typical California bungalow, Victorian, and so on, that you've got your 4 bedrooms, your double lock-up garage, your living areas, and there's a lot of space you don't need, right? Now, that property, let's say it sells for $3 million, argument's sake. Now, they can go find a property or a townhouse, let's say areas like Bentley or Bentley East, or even for 3-bedroom townhouse, brand new, mind you, which means low maintenance, of course, that they can spend between 1.2 to 1.3. So technically, they've already got 1.4 to 1.6 million dollars extra money that they can utilize it for their own good. Either they can go and create a new lifestyle by going and travel the world, or like I said before previously, or in a lot of cases, people do buy an investment property, and depends on the situations, on what they are eligible to get as far as the pension is concerned, and so on. And let's face it, a lot of people they're very flexible with the income. So some other people might require the additional income to live them the extra 20, 30 years, argument's sake. So, and what a great way to do is by having another outlet of income by having an investment property.
As a sort of a first step in that regard, or a thing to look at in the financial area, what would you first suggest to our viewers?
Great question, Linda. I always say, when it comes to that question, do not rush. There's no hurry. At the end of the day, there's so many properties out there that you can choose and be more strategic about what you're going to do. For example, let's say you want to buy another investment property. Now let's locate the area. What area suits you and your needs. Now, we all know the further you go out in Melbourne, the cheaper they are. Yes, there are advantages and disadvantages. The biggest advantage obviously is the economical part, because they're a lot more cheaper and more affordable. The disadvantage will be more further out for traveling. But once again, remember, the people they're gonna buy an investment property, they don't have to travel there back and forwards, because it's a pure investment purposes. Let's call it a financial a tool. That's what it is, or a vehicle. So in this case here, example, there's a lot of properties out there that there's many people out there that sell new homes. My personal experience with a situation like that, find out where is your land, find out if that particular area that you're going to buy, what is the growth, what are the surround amenities. Because remember, the golden rule in real estate is always location, location, location. So it doesn't matter where you are. For example, let's pick an area like Murder, for argument's sake. Murder the last couple of years has been on a boom. They've even got a brand new railway station, for example, and their particular area or region has gone skyrocket. Now, we've got schools, we've got childcare centres, we've got nursing homes, we've got shopping centres, and now we've got railway line. That's a big plus for a potential tenant to rent that particular property. And at the end of the day, when you buy a rental property, it's the return that counts. B, that you're going to find a property, it's going to be newer property, which means you're going to eliminate all the maintenance. Because if we go back, for example, on an older home, you're still going to have the maintenance and you've got to look after it. So definitely there's a lot of people out there that can assist, but once again, make sure to pick the right person, and by doing so, interview them. Go around and have a look what they offer and compare it with someone else. Very simple.
Thank you, Con. And for more information on Con Nichols and improving your environment to meet your lifestyle, then please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Welcome back. And next we have Leah Estate, who's an artist and energy healer. And she's here today to talk to us about creativity. So what is it about creativity that's brought you here today to share, Leah?
Thank you, Linda. I'd love to talk about that. Well, I've encountered in my life and surroundings people who seem to be a little bit lost. They seem to be in a state of desperation at times, sometimes happy, but since we're human, it's not always possible to stay in a positive state. So I've been thinking a lot about that recently, and as much as we have mindful meditation, which is clearing the mind, there are other forms of not obvious meditative states that can assist us to be in the present moment. And so that might be things like singing, drawing, doodling, walking in the park, perhaps gardening for some. But more importantly, it also gives people a state of mind, instead of thinking of past occurrences, that might keep them in the past, might keep them sad, might keep them in a place that's not conducive to the present moment. It takes them out of that place. And also, if we argue, well, we start worrying about the future, which everyone does, I do. But then I pick myself up and say, stop that. And thinking about the future is counterproductive because we can't do anything about it.
No, it makes us more anxious,
Makes us
doesn't
more
it?
anxious.
Yes.
So what's the point? So I think it's important for people to know to do mindful pursuits, to keep themselves present, because in the present is the only time we have. It's the only thing we seemingly can control. It's the only time that we can be spontaneously happy. And so things like that might be, you pick up a book, or a sketchbook rather, or even some people use written books, and when they're done with them, instead of throwing them out, they might doodle in them.
It's a great way to be environmentally friendly, isn't it?
It is. You're recycling. Or you buy just a cheap sketch pad from anywhere and you start doodling. Or you might ask someone to make a scribble. And so with that scribble, you might indulge in, what will I do with it? Will I colour it in? Will I finish it? Will I add extra lines? And another thing you can do with regards to allowing the brain to switch and have peace is you might use the hand you don't normally use to start drawing. It's very difficult. You might think, oh no, how can I do that? But it's actually easy once you try it. The point is this: whatever you do, and I'll go into more in a moment, never ever do it in a state of ego. Never do it in a state of, my goodness, that's terrible. Don't show anybody. If anyone's ever read The Artist's Way, that book talks about doing creative pursuits, but then not having an opinion. Don't show anyone. Don't even look at it yourself. So put it away and leave it. Because as soon as your ego gets involved, as soon as your ego says, oh, that's terrible, that's horrible, what did I do? It just kills the entire process. The process is the process. There's no ego, there's no judgment involved at all. So,
well, that's just all very amazing. There's so much information you
it
have
is,
to
and
share.
we're just skimming the surface here. So it's quite exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Quite exciting.
Thank you very much for joining us
That's
today
okay.
and sharing all that wonderful information.
Thank you.
And for more information about Leah and creativity, then please go to our website, Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle. And for now, we'll say bye-bye and we'll see you next week.